Okay guys, so the next thing we're going to do is code the ball, and this is going to be broken up into two big chunks of code. The first code being how we want the ball to work in our game, and then the second part of the code is going to be the actual animation of the ball kind of bursting into different pieces. So to start off, we're going to go into our yellow events tab and use when green flag clicked. Just going to zoom in a little bit for you guys. We're going to go into looks and we're going to hide this because again we don't want it to show until our game is actually starting. We're going to go inside of the yellow events tab again and use when I receive play game, and this is where we're going to go ahead and show our ball. We're also going to add a set size, which we'll come back to later. So when we're testing out our game, the size of the ball might be a little bit too big, so this is where we'll come back to change it. And then to make sure it's on the correct costume, we're going to add a switch costume to costume 1. Now we're going to go inside of the blue motions tab and add a go to X and Y, and we're going to change this both to 0, which is going to be where our ball is going to start. And then we're going to, still inside the blue motions tab, add a point and direction. We're going to go into operators and add a pick random. And we're going to change this from 130 to 230. So it's going to pick a random direction and then it's going to start throwing the ball. But we want to make sure that it waits a little second before it does that. So now that we've done this, the next step is going to be the actual movement of the ball. So we're going to add a forever. Inside the forever, we're going to move 10 steps so that it's constantly moving for us. We're going to go into control and add an if then. Inside of the if then, we're going to go into sensing and add a touching paddle. So when it's touching our paddle, what do we want it to do? In the blue motions tab, we're going to go ahead and add a point and direction again. We're going to go into operators and use the minus symbol. And we're going to go ahead and change this to 180. And the other side, we're going to go into the blue motions tab and add the blue direction bubble. So this will then point the direction in which the ball will go after it touches the paddle. So the next thing we want to do is make sure that we code what happens when it's touching any sides of the wall. So we're going to actually just duplicate this for right now and move it all the way at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and just stop that. Once that happens, we're going to remove this touching paddle because we want to do something a little bit differently. Since we have two different areas that the ball can touch, which is the left and right side, we're going to add an OR, so it's touching either OR side. And then we're going to use the less than symbol on the left hand side and the greater than symbol on the right hand side. We're going to go into the blue motions tab. And for the empty bubbles, we're going to change both of these to the X position. For this first one, we're going to change it to negative 235. And this one is going to be 235. Okay. So now we're going to point in direction. We're going to change this to 360 and leave this all the same. We're going to duplicate this again, and now the last place that the ball can touch is the actual top part of the screen here. So we're going to go ahead and change this. So I duplicated it and moved it at the bottom. I'm going to remove this because it's just one area. And we're actually going to use the greater than symbol for this one. So we're going to put this inside. And the rest we're going to go ahead and delete. We're removing the X position because this is going to be in our Y. So we're going to change that to the Y position. And then this number, we're going to change it to 175. The last thing we're going to do is the 360, we're going to change it to 180. So now that that is done, the next thing we want to go ahead and code is going to be what if it's touching our brick. So this is breaking up into all the possibilities that our ball can touch. So we've mentioned what happened if it touches the paddle, what happened if it touches the left and right hand side, what happens if it touches the top. Now we need to mention what happens when it touches the brick. So since we don't have the brick art, that's perfectly fine, but we can leave this as a placeholder, what we're going to do next. So we're going to duplicate this if statement again, move it all the way at the bottom. This piece, we're going to change it to sensing touching a mouse pointer. We're going to leave this for now because we're going to change it later on to the brick once we have it. And we're going to leave this point in direction 180 minus direction. So now the last thing that we want to code that we're going to touch is the bottom piece that we're going to add that's going to tell us when our game is over. So we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to delete the middle part. So if it's touching blank, which we'll add later on in today's class, then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go inside the yellow events tab. We're going to broadcast a new message, and we're going to call this game over. Then we want to go ahead and add a wait 0.5 seconds, and then we're going to go ahead and set a control, add a stop all the way at the bottom. So with this, we're pretty much all done with the actual moving of the code. So the ball moving, everything should work now on its own. The next part is going to be actually coding the way that the ball is going to work when it touches the kind of like the losing area. So if you just click on your green flag, you can go ahead and test that out. You can see that it's working. So it seems like it's a little bit of an issue. It could be because of the ball size. So I'll probably have to change that. And it's also probably because of that little extra piece that I added for the crown right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that. And I'm going to delete it. And I'm also going to make the size of my ball just a little bit smaller. So I'll try 50 for right now. So I'm going to test everything out towards the end, but with those added changes, it should work. So make sure you guys test out yours. But the last part of this code is going to be us coding the animation for the ball. So for this one, we're going to start when I receive game over, because that's when the animation should start. We're going to go into looks, and we're going to hide. We're going to then point in direction -90. And then we're going to add a repeat a repeat 5. So this is going to be what's going to create those pieces scattering. So inside here, we're going to go into motions, and we're going to turn right 15 degrees. And then we're going to create, from control, create clone of myself. And it's going to repeat this one more time, so we're just going to duplicate this and add it in the bottom. Next, we're going to add a wait 1 second all the way underneath the repeat. And then inside the blue motions tab, we're going to add a go to X and Y, which we're going to change both of these to 0. We're going to add another point in direction, and we're going to change this to -162. And the last thing we're going to do is at the bottom, we're going to go into looks and add a show. So this is the starting point of our animation, and now we need to tell it when it creates a clone of what we want the rest of it to do. So if we scroll down, we're going to go into control and start with when I start as a clone. We're going to go ahead and go into looks, and we're going to add a set size. Then we're going to go ahead and go into operators, and we're going to add a pick random from 1 to 10. So we have a little bit different sizes, and we're going to change this from 100 to 130. And you guys can play around with this number to play around with how big or how small you want the pieces to be. Next, we're going to go into the Blue Motions tab and add a point and direction. We're going to duplicate this pick random, and we're going to change this from 0 to 360. Next, we're going to, inside the Blue Motions tab, we're going to get a set rotation style. And we're going to change this to all around because we want it to happen all over. So now we're going to go ahead and show this. And we also want it to switch costume to costume 2 because we want to specify not to make it to the first costume, which is our ball, but to the second costume, which is our small little pieces. So now underneath this, we're going to go onto the control tab and we're going to add a repeat 10. We're going to go into looks and add a change size by 1. And then if those pieces are touching our edge, we're going to have a bounce. So we're going to go inside the Blue Motions tab and look for that. So if on edge bounce. And then we're going to have it move 10 steps. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this repeat and add it at the bottom again. We're going to change this 10 this time to a 5. And then we're going to just go ahead and remove this move 10 steps to the side for right now. We're going to change size by 5. And then we're going to leave if on edge bounce. Next, we're going to go into looks and we're going to add a change color effect by 25. We're changing the color to ghost and the effect 25 to 20. And then we're going to add these move 10 steps at the bottom of that change, but change the 10 to a 5. And then the last thing that you want to do is all the way at the bottom of control, we're going to add a delete this clone. So now this will add the animation for us, but it's not going to work until we actually create the bottom piece that we're going to do next. And then afterwards, we're going to go ahead and test everything out to make sure that everything is working. So the next step is going to be creating the artwork for your bottom piece.